Well, we have officially passed the 5-year mark since Metroid Prime 4 was announced. And I just wanted to take a brief moment to look back and reflect on everything that led to the point where we are right now. The initial reveal, the delay, all of that stuff. Because I think I speak for everyone here when I say these past 5 years in terms of Metroid Prime 4 have gone completely different than any of us ever hoped or expected. I want to take things back to 2016. Metroid Prime Federation Force had just released. People didn't like it at the time. Fans were complaining, a lot of them didn't buy it. The game sold terribly, but those who did buy the game really liked it. Myself included, I thought it was a really good game. And for those of us that played through, we were quite surprised at the ending when we get this cliffhanger ending of a Metroid egg being hatched and suddenly Psylocke shows up. That took all of us off guard. It certainly took me off guard because we had seen a ship in Metroid Prime 3, but this seemed to indicate that they very much intended to follow up on that story and that we would get another mainline Metroid Prime game, a fourth game. And surely enough, a few months after that, Tanabe did an interview where he confirmed that it was Psylocke in both games, and that he had plans for a fourth game that would deal with the relationship between Samus and Psylocke. But this wasn't anything concrete, these were just statements at the time, and the future of Metroid was still unknown. Going into April 2017, the Nintendo Switch had just launched. There were rumors at the time that a Metroid game was going to get announced at E3. Two, in fact. The rumors eventually started saying that we would get two Metroid games at E3. One of them would be a 2D game, and one of them would be Metroid Prime 4. Or at least I think they said the other one was 2D. I actually don't remember, but I know for a fact we were expecting Metroid Prime 4. And there was all these different studios thrown out there about who could be developing it, if not Retro. And one thing that happened at the time that really stood in a lot of people's minds was this: Retro Studios were posting really cryptic posts on Twitter. They posted like a picture of Prime Rib, and I remember we all latched onto that. We thought that meant something. That was confirmation of Metroid Prime 4. And I remember this was still on my old YouTube channel. I was talking about Metroid news all at that point. We were getting ready to gear up for 2017. And the talk and the potential of two Metroid games showing up was really exciting, but we were cautious because a lot of us didn't expect to even get one. So June 2017, E3 comes around and the bombshell. After like 10 years since Metroid Prime 3 corruption, Metroid Prime 4 gets announced and confirmed by Nintendo. This was an insane moment. Like, if you weren't there at the time, or if you're not a Metroid fan, you really can't comprehend the scope of this. This was huge. At the start of a new Nintendo console generation, for them to outright confirm a Metroid game, to make it Metroid Prime 4, was a massive deal because it signaled that Nintendo were going to make the Metroid games that we wanted and expected. They were making Metroid Prime 4, the game we all wanted on the Wii U. Everyone was talking about it for years, and people either believed or didn't believe it would happen. Nintendo had now confirmed it was happening, and I remember the entire internet exploded. Everyone was going crazy. The reaction videos were really entertaining. I spent weeks watching those. And we didn't get any news at that show, really. We got this image of space, and then we see the Screw Attack logo and the number 4, and it's the Metroid Prime title music. And then we see Metroid Prime 4. And that's it. It lasted 43 seconds. The only news we got other than that was that it was going to be a first-person game. It wasn't being developed by Retro Studios. It was being developed internally by Nintendo. And that really kind of had a mixed reaction, I feel. A lot of us were really excited that I don't think it fully registered. For myself, I could feel that I was disappointed with the fact that it wasn't Retro, but at the same time, I was just careening from the fact that this massive game had just been announced. And I was so excited. I was losing my mind over this. We didn't get any information on it. A few more Nintendo Directs came around. We figured, okay, maybe the Game Awards we'd see something. I didn't know about the Game Awards at that time, so I wasn't, expecting anything, but nothing happened. But coming up to E3 2018, it had been a year since the game was announced. We were all speculating on the story, confused over the whole Retro Studios tweet, but still very much excited the game was real. We had gotten quotes from Reggie saying the game was still going well and development was progressing nicely. E3 2018 came and we didn't see the game. We didn't see Metroid Prime Trilogy either, because naturally the confirmation of Metroid Prime 4, a new Metroid game for Switch, meant that we were all looking at Metroid Prime Trilogy is also coming. And I think a lot of us were surprised not to see it in 2018, because I think, at least in my mind anyway, I expected Metroid Prime 4 to come out in 2019. And I thought Trilogy would come out in 2018. That didn't happen. We reached the Game Awards 2018 and things got really interesting at this point. It had been over a year since the game was announced. We hadn't got any information on it. Reggie was wearing a Metroid t-shirt and there seemed to be some slight hints and references towards seeing something. We don't know what happened, but the Game Awards happens. Metroid Prime Trilogy isn't there. Neither is Metroid Prime 4. And this started a trend that would continue for the rest of the Switch lifecycle. And we were all confused and very disappointed because a lot of us felt like it was certain that the game would be there. And I remember shortly after that, I made a video saying that it was definitely going to be at E3 2019. Absolutely guaranteed. At that point, it would be 2 years. It would probably be the main focus of E3 2019. Lo and behold, January 6th, 2019, Nintendo puts out a video, development update on Metroid Prime 4. I remember seeing that title and I didn't really think anything negative at the time. I saw that and I was like, okay, this is exciting. They're going to give us some news or whatever. Because Nintendo had never done a video like that before, so we had no idea what to expect. The video goes on and suddenly the news starts to look more bleak. He starts talking about how the game is falling apart behind the scenes. This actually lines up with rumors we were hearing at the time that Bandai Namco were developing the game in different studios all across the world. There was miscommunication. And if that's to be believed, then that's probably the reason. And he says that the game is being scrapped and they're starting all over again, but they're giving it back to Retro Studios. They apologize and they say it will be a long time before we can show you anything again. And that was it. The whole Metroid Prime 4 saga up to that point, that was it. All the hopes and dreams of seeing the game crushed. I made a big video about it afterwards. And I remember I got home, I sat on the couch after I made that video. And I just sunk my head between my hands in pure disbelief. Not gonna lie, fairly depressed over the fact that this game that I was extremely excited for, more excited than anything else really, I would now have to wait even longer for. At that point, we didn't know the Switch was going to last for 10 years, so I was expecting 2021, 2022, the game might come out and we'd be in the next generation by then. And I was depressed, and more Nintendo Directs came. The fact that we basically had to forget the game existed and we would have to wait twice as long was soul-crushing. And it was also a conflicting time because it was very good that Nintendo addressed us, honestly, and that they gave it back to Retro, but there was a lot of frustration and small bits of anger there as well, because why didn't you just give it to Retro in the first place? You could have saved all of this hassle. But we would have to wait another few years, probably 2 or 3 years, and so many of us in our depression began to blank the game from our minds. It obviously wasn't at E3 2019, neither was Metroid Prime Trilogy. I started to go under the mindset that I guess Metroid Prime 4 is probably going to be the only Metroid game they focus on now. We might not even get Prime Trilogy. It might just be that game because all of their resources are going to be heavy on making that one game out for Switch. And the job listings started coming in at the end of 2019, especially in 2020. all these like animators and concept artists, and I made a load of videos at the time. Anytime one of these job hirings came out, it was the only news we had to go on. And they gave us some insights. We did manage to pick up on the fact that the game is going to be more story focused, a lot of cutscenes, this sort of thing. But that was all you could really garner from it. I was happy enough because that's exactly what I wanted from the game, to be more story driven. But then we reached 2020 and the rumors of a 2D Metroid start picking up. And this is where the saga gets kind of interesting, because the rumors start in January that there's a Paper Mario game coming out, and there's also a 2D Metroid in development. And then the Paper Mario trailer comes out around May, and at the end we see Mario wearing Samus's helmet. And that was really weird because Metroid Prime 4, this definitely wasn't alluding to Prime 4. There was no way, it would be way too soon. So it was obviously potentially referencing a 2D Metroid, if anything at all. Which again was very conflicting, because surely they wouldn't divert attention away from Metroid Prime 4. And, I didn't know what to think at the time. I had hopes, but I didn't really expect that they were making any other Metroid game. E3 2020 didn't happen, so nothing happened there. The months passed by, we didn't see anything. So a lot of us gave up hope that it was referring to a new game, that maybe it was just an Easter egg, like the old Samus Easter eggs in like Mario RPG and stuff. Some rumors persist, but then we come toward E3 2021. A lot of people are gearing up to start expecting Metroid Prime Trilogy or maybe Metroid Prime 4, but not really. The 2D Metroid rumors had really kicked off at that point, and I remember I was going into E3 thinking, I guess maybe there's a possibility here that we get a new 2D Metroid game, and it's actually Metroid 5, because I didn't mention up to this point, and it probably should have, but considering this focus on Metroid Prime 4, you can forgive me for not mentioning it. Metroid Prime 4 obviously wasn't the only game we got at E3 2017. We did get another Metroid game, and it was a remake of Metroid 2 titled Metroid Samus Returns, and it came out for the 3DS. My initial reaction...
I mean, I'm glad I got a Metroid game, don't get me wrong.
I was shocked that it was 2D. I didn't like the art style. The fact that it was a remake and not a new game didn't appeal to me, but I was willing to give it a chance. The game came out, and I had some fun in the beginning, sort of recency bias, but as the days and weeks passed on after its release, I started getting really negative toward it. And my opinion since then is that I really don't like Samus Returns. It is my least favorite Metroid game. I really don't like it. But I'll save that for another video. I'll do a 5-year video for that soon, and maybe my thoughts will have changed, we'll see. But I bring up Samus Returns because there were some new secrets and lore added in with the Chozo in that game. And this message at the end that said 2D Red, which if you were to say it fully was 2 Dread, which a lot of us were like, okay, this is a cliffhanger tease for Dread, which was the subtitle for Metroid 5 when it was in development back in 2005. There were rumors of Metroid 5 coming out for the Nintendo DS, and it was going to be called Metroid Dread. It never happened. The game got cancelled. A lot of us didn't know if it was real. I always believed it was real, and some others did as well. And I always believed it would come back, but again, with Metroid Prime 4 being delayed, I was uncertain. I always figured Nintendo's resources would be focused on that game. But coming up to E3 2021, I was like, you know what? Maybe. There is a chance that, 5 years have passed now. The rumors line up. We heard in January 2018 that a new 2D Metroid had just entered development, and now we're hearing that it's about to be shown. The timeline of these rumors was lining up. I guess it made sense that it could tie us over until, Prime 4, because a 2D Metroid would be a different team from Retro Studios. And I remember going into E3 2021, going down to my friend's house to watch it. I was thinking, you know what? Maybe there's a chance we see Metroid Dread. Maybe. I don't want to get my hopes up, but if it doesn't happen now, it's probably not going to happen until after Prime 4 comes out. Nintendo Direct happens, we get around the halfway point, and suddenly they mention Metroid Prime 4. And I lose my mind. I'm like, oh shit. The guy hosting the Direct, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He mentions they're working on it and that it will be a while before they can show us. And we're like, okay, fair enough. And then he mentions they have another game in development. And we see the trailer. And it's Metroid Dread. I've already talked about this loads of times, so I'm not going to go too much into it here, but it's so funny to me, especially now in 2022, looking back on all of this, that Metroid Dread released before Metroid Prime 4. It's so bizarre to me. And the fact that both games are going to come to Switch is amazing all in all, but the fact I played Metroid Dread before Prime 4 is not something I really expected. After the delay, I was certain Prime 4 would be the only Metroid game for Switch, primarily. But no, we got a 2D game, and yeah, it was by Mercury Steam, and I hated what they did with Samus Returns, but what they did with Dread looked really good, and sure enough, the game was a masterpiece. You don't need me to go into the whole fiasco there. As much as I'd love to talk about this is a video about Prime 4, so, you already know the whole situation with Metroid Dread. But needless to say, this blew us away. This was the game we wanted. These two games, but this in particular. Our focus was turned away from Metroid Prime 4. A lot of us found it easier to forget about Prime 4. Me as well. Once this was announced, I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't properly given Metroid Prime 4 much thought since then. That's why I haven't done many videos on like the job hirings and stuff, because this was the only game that mattered. Never mind Prime 4. This was the main focus. And it came out, it was the focus of discussion for a time, and it had its time in the limelight. But once it was out, that was it. Focus turned again toward Metroid Prime 4. Specifically, would we get the trilogy beforehand and all of that? Rumors started coming up at the end of 2021 that a Metroid Prime remake was coming out instead of the trilogy. Remains to be seen if either of those will happen. But the latest update in this whole saga, as I keep calling it, comes in February 2022. Retro Studios updates their Twitter banner, and it's concept art of what appears to be Metroid Prime 4, because that's not from the Prime trilogy. So we technically had our first look at Metroid Prime 4. I freaked out. It was one image, but I almost passed the fuck out. I lost my mind, completely hyperventilated, the whole shebang. This was crazy. The first time the game was addressed, technically, in 4 years. And that was really exciting, and it led credence to the fact that, okay, we're definitely going to see the game in 2022 at E3. E3 was cancelled and it's not happening this year, and it may be dead for good, but presumably Nintendo is still doing a Direct because we're in that time frame. The Direct hasn't happened as of the time of this video, but new rumors say it's happening around the 29th. I think it might be around the 21st, but regardless of the date and what you think it is, I think everyone is in agreement that we're going to get a Direct this month. And so that leads us to where we are now. Metroid Prime 4 has a high chance of showing up in this Direct. So does the trilogy or whatever. So, could we possibly see it? Is that artwork really something to go on, or is it just bait and it doesn't mean anything? We'll find out, and maybe we get disappointed again, but the attention is finally turned toward Metroid Prime 4 again. Now that Dread has come and gone, Samus Returns has come and gone. The delay was over 3 years ago. Yeah, COVID happened in between all of that, so that probably pushed things back a few months. I even made a video on that at the time. But, I can't attest to that. I'll obviously make a video on the situation if we get the game at a Direct or not. But for now, looking back at everything that led us to this point, it's interesting how heavily the 2D games are entwined in this. These two games, their existence and their announcement really plays into the story of Metroid Prime 4's development. And, especially given how Metroid Dread turned out in the end, I think it was a relief for a lot of people because it restored faith in that, Metroid Prime 4 will be worth the wait. This was in development for 15 years. Well, technically it was only in development for 4 years, but we were waiting at least 15 years for it. And that turned out incredible. Has some minor problems, and I don't really like the story, but everything else is just excellent. And so, why wouldn't Metroid Prime 4 turn out the same? Especially with all the job listings and all the talent they hired. It seems like that will be the ultimate Metroid game. The game to surpass Dread. And, it will be crazy when that happens. And as of right now, we're still waiting to see the game. And it's just so funny because, we never expected that 5 years later, 5 years on from E3 2017, we would still be waiting for a morsel of information on the game. But that's the way the cookie crumbles, and I admire Nintendo's honesty with the developments. The fact it went back to retro is good. They know what they're doing. Tanabe's big involvement with the game. And I'm sure it's going to be jaw-dropping, and it's going to be the best game, and it'll obviously become the best-selling game. But it's just crazy. Everything that led to this moment, we had our minds preoccupied, but now that the 2D games are done, we're not going to get another one for at least 4 years. It'll probably be 2025 at the earliest before we see one. And if it's by Mercury Steam, it's probably going to be like 2035 at the earliest because they're making an RPG at the moment. So unless they're developing another one alongside that. So the attention is entirely on Metroid Prime 4. That is the future of Metroid as it stands. That's the only other game we know of in development. The original game we were all waiting for. And, it'll be interesting once this all blows over. Once we see footage of the game, it'll be monumentous. I might pass out. I don't know what it is. Once Prime 4 was announced and after Samus Returns came out and rumors of Dread were going about, it was interesting because I was starting to really feel the excitement for Metroid. I was starting to feel like anytime a Metroid announcement came up, it would excite me in ways no other game would. And that's part of why I was so depressed with the delay of Prime 4, because all of that excitement ultimately meant nothing at the time. But as I keep saying, it will be worth it in the end. It was just hard to see that at the time. And from 2017 to 2021, there was no Metroid news other than Prime 4 had been delayed. So it was like 2010 to 2016 all over again. We were in this hiatus between games. The one game we were expecting was pushed off to an indefinite amount of time. Many of us believed it would be 2022, 2023. So that left us wondering, is that it? Is there really nothing else in the meantime for us to look forward to? And luckily, it took a while. It took 4 years and a lot of sort of impatience and frustrations, but we got an excellent game. Soon enough, we're going to get another excellent game. And all of this will be in the past. Once Metroid Prime 4 comes out, we'll be looking back at this as a strange time in the fandom's history. But as of right now, it's a waiting game. And I just hope that my next video after this is a reaction to footage. I really hope that concept art means something. But who knows? We'll soon find out. And yeah, that's it. I just wanted to look back and reflect upon everything that brought us to this point with Metroid Prime 4, how Dread and Samus Returns played into that. Hopefully we see the game soon. I don't know. We're at the mercy of Nintendo on this one. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments section below. How did you feel when Metroid Prime 4 was announced? Were you as excited as I was? How did you feel when the game was delayed? When did you originally think it would come out? When do you think it's coming out now? I want to hear everything you have to say down in the comment section below. And yeah, with that all said, thank you all for watching and please subscribe. Novus Corvius out.